Good afternoon. I just wanted to come on here and talk about runway incursions and how to avoid them. According to the FAA Order 7050.1, runway safety program, a runway incursion is any occurrence at an aerodrome involving the incorrect presence of an aircraft, vehicle, or person on the protected area of the surface designated for landing and takeoff of an aircraft. So there are different types of runway incursions. There's Category A, Category B, Category C, D, and Category A is explained as is a serious incident in which a collision was narrowly avoided. Category B is an incident in which separation decreases and there is a significant potential for collision, which may result in time-critical corrective evasive response to avoid a collision. Category C is an incident characterized by ample time and or distance to avoid a collision. Category D is an incident that meets the definition of runway incursion, such as incorrect presence of a single vehicle, person, aircraft on the protected area of the surface designated for landing and takeoff of aircraft, but with no immediate safety consequences. And then you have an accident, which is an incursion that results in a collision of some sort. One of the most important things when you think about runway incursions is situational awareness. That's one of the most important things as pilots, especially busy airports. Situational awareness is key because you don't know what could happen. You just got to be ready, and you're looking at be ready for your surroundings, all that type of stuff. The planning is key too. So to familiarize yourself with an airport you may have not flown into and you're planning to go there, get familiar with the taxi diagram, taxi planning. Make sure check your NOTAMs, look for hotspots on the airport diagrams. ATIS, weather, ask somebody you know that it could have flown in there and they can show you or explain to you potential things to look out for, so you don't end up in a runway incursion. So this is a good habit for pilots. Before you call ATC for instructions, make sure you have pen and paper ready and you're ready to listen. Write down your taxi instructions, then read them back. This helps. If there's a long instruction and if you ever forget, even could be taxi runway 20 via Bravo Charlie. Write it down. It's like, and Eastman taxi those routes every day, and why not write them down? It's just a good habit and can help you avoid a runway incursion. It's a good idea to do a taxi briefing before beginning any taxi. Some things to include in the briefing: the taxi route given, any complex intersections, any hotspots that you would be aware of, discuss any runways you may be crossing. And if you may not be sure, if you didn't get the clearance right, don't just go ahead and go. You can ask ATC to repeat themselves. And pretty sure they would be more than glad to tell you the correct and make sure you're correct and read back. Taxiing on an unfamiliar airport can be very challenging, especially at night or low visibility. It is important to remain heads up with your eyes outside and devote your entire attention to ground navigation given from your ATC clearance. All checklists should be completed while the aircraft is stopped. Never try to do things like set up the GPS unless you have come to a full stop. Try to eliminate all distractions like cell phones or chatting that doesn't pertain to the task. The best thing to do is to keep a sterile cockpit, meaning eliminating all non-essential chatter or other activities while maintaining vigilance during taxi. Continuing to listen to ATC gives you a good overall picture of where others are taxiing and helps you understand what other aircrafts on the ground are doing. Before you enter a runway, you will see a hold short line, which 2 solid lines and 2 dashed yellow lines painted on the runway entrance. All aircraft and vehicles must stop at the double lines until ATC gives them clearance to cross when you are told to. Hold short of the runway. ATC is instructing you to taxi up to the runway hold markings. It is the best practice not to go all the way up the line without crossing. I usually tell people that for me, I like to have a little wiggle room. So what I mean by that is sometimes you're sitting there for a bit due to landing traffic. If your feet come off the brakes slightly, you can catch it quickly without rolling off over the hold short line. Remain alert for any hold short crossing clearance and hotspots if applicable. A crossing clearance is a clearance to cross the hold short line and cross the runway. If you're ever in a doubt, if you have a crossing clearance, stop, remain clear of the runway, and contact ATC. Just ask them to repeat themselves. It is best practice to expedite your taxi and turn all aircraft lights on while on the runway. So anytime could just be crossing a runway to another taxiway. But it's good practice and important to turn on all your lights so if anybody's landing or so they can see you, obviously. So ATC uses the phase line up and wait when a takeoff clearance cannot be issued yet. Due to traffic or other reasons, line up and wait is a clearance allowing you to cross the hold short line and taxi onto a runway to await a takeoff clearance. This issued yet due to traffic or other reasons. Line up and wait is a clearance. Okay, let's see. This helps expedite your takeoff clearance once it is issued. Remember though, a line up and wait clearance does not give you clearance for takeoff. It only clearance to enter the runway and hold the position for takeoff. It is best practice to always scan the full length of the runway and its approach, and for any aircraft, for other aircraft before you enter the runway environment. It is also best practice to line up slightly left or right of center line when holding for takeoff so that your aircraft is visible and can be differentiated from runway lights at night or during low visibility. It is very often that pilots misread the runway signs and take off the wrong runway. I always tell people to double check before taking off. Look both ways, like a stop sign. Same concept. If departing a runway 20, you set your aircraft heading bug to 200. When turning onto the runway, align your aircraft with the runway heading to avoid departure from the wrong runway. Before ending power, make one last instrument scan to ensure the aircraft heading and runway heading are aligned. So they're also that's the thing with runway incursions. They do happen, and some people just choose to not talk about them as they need to be talked about. I've already talked about it, but I can't stress it enough that situational awareness is key to being able to know where you are, who you are, and what you're doing in that moment. And it is important to be aware of your surroundings because someone else in another plane may not be, and you have to watch out for those people. And just stay on your toes and keep flying. All right, that's it. Have a good one.